200 wildfires breaking out in Missouri? What? That's what we're talking about. Let's get into it. Moving to southern Missouri is the best thing I've ever done for my family. So about 2 weeks ago, we had 200 wildfires break out, and they burnt a pretty sizable portion of land. To put into perspective, so it was about 15,000 acres that burned, and that's almost half of like what the state has burned in an entire year. And we had that burn in about 5 days. Of course, now we're moving into the very wet time of year and tornadoes, so now we're gonna have flooding. So people kind of understand the way that I've noticed Missouri works is that the winter time, particularly the end of winter, beginning of spring, before we get that heavy dump of rain, is when we have the driest time of year. And I admit, I've even had a fire get away from me, and it really surprised me because I have burned brush and worked on forestry crews and been part of volunteer fire departments for my entire life, right? When you live in an area, one area, for your whole life, you just become so intimate. Like every branch that you burn, you know exactly how it combusts. You know what I mean? Like for those of you, in the Pacific Northwest, you know how crazy explosive tan oak is. Like, it's wild. It's almost like if you combined like an evergreen with an oak, because you have like the combustibility of an evergreen and that high heat of a hardwood. But yeah, so I was used to the way that fire and burning things worked in Northern California. And of course there, the wettest time of year is winter, and that's when we burn and we feel pretty safe about it. And I thought that it seemed like somewhat damp, but here that grass is just so dry in the winter. I just feel like fires get away from me easier here in the winter than I've experienced anywhere else. And I was burning some brush and at the bottom of a meadow, right? Because that's where I'd cleared all the branches. Like it was just the best place. But I had weed whacked my circle, for my burn pile. But like in California, it was such an issue with fires. If there was any issue, unless it was sopping wet, I would take a McLeod, you guys know I love that tool, and I would literally cut an entire fire circle like bare earth, right? I've never done that here just because I usually am burning when it's very, very wet. But here, instead of cutting it, I just weed whacked it all the way down, to the dirt pretty much. It was pretty close, and I started my fire and just poof, it just took off up that hill. And I didn't even have my tools right there because I had this kind of delusional thing that like stuff doesn't burn in Missouri because it's so different. It's like, it's weird. We kind of don't have fires, and yet at the same time, there's this period, like end of winter, I feel like, that is so combustible. And so now I'm a lot more careful. And what I like to do is I like to have my burn scar where I just bring my brush to and burn. It just, you kind of know that like over time you've burned it out, all the roots underground are burnt out, and it's just a good, safe spot to burn. That's just how I like to do it. But I didn't do it that way. Burnt at the bottom of a meadow, and it just straight took off. And very slow burning, nothing major. I got a tool and I tamped it out, but I was feeling some anxiety. So this round of fires we can blame on the crazy high winds. And I've had some clients come and just be like, whoa, it's really, really windy here. And I'm like, it's not usually this windy. So we have been having just crazy high winds, and they've been happening all over too. I mean, really throughout the Midwest. Oklahoma's been having crazy high winds, Kansas. In fact, Kansas and parts of Oklahoma have been having such high winds that they're having like deadly dust storms, like crazy pileups with cars, and just like massive havoc over this kind of several weeks of wind that we've been having. But what we had was a lot of fires. And I mean, we call them wildfires, but really they're caused by people. And I want to talk about it a little bit because I think that we need to adapt and change our behavior. Like if this is drier and windier, if it was drier and windier than normal, then we need to adapt. And I think a lot of people didn't. And that's why we had some pretty big fires for around here, right? So for where we live, the two reasons that numerous fires broke out were people burning trash and burning their fields in extremely high winds, red flag. I mean, where it's just brutal outside. Like, I don't even know how anyone lit them. Maybe not with a lighter. I mean, we're talking blazing wind. So I would like to encourage locals to pay attention to that. It's something, if you grow up in fire country, it's just something you don't do. When there's that crazy high of winds, you do not start a fire really just any time of year, because your fire is gonna like blow away. even if your area is damp, right? But yeah, so we had actually one happen right across from us, and I did call the fire department, and I'll explain to you why I felt like I shouldn't, but ultimately I just decided to go with my gut, and I did. So around here, it's just very casual about burning the fields, and I love that. I grew up like around a lot of the reservations, like the Karuk and the Yurok and those tribes, they burn the land. And so I really saw how beautiful it made it. Like, I get using fire, and around here, it's just the way that people do it. Unlike where I come from in California, Northern California, where they're prescribed burns and they're very like calculated and they're put out in the media and like everyone's talking about them before they do them. And here, just everyone and their mother burns their field. It's like super just casual. The problem is that I think that what happened is that people like have their set time of year that they do it, and they just did it anyway, even though we were having insane red flag winds and tons of them got out of control. We have some friends that live over near Rockbridge, right? Like right out kind of, 30 minutes outside of Ava. And man, they had to be actually evacuated at one point, and they just moved into their house from their other house burning down from an electrical fire. So if you can imagine, I think it took them 2 years to build this house. The father built it all on his own. Maybe about a year and a half, but it was a big deal. It was a big deal to them that they were evacuated after all that. And that was a trash fire. And then here across our way, we saw a fire getting out of hand. And I talked to my neighbors and just was like, that looks like it's getting out of hand. And they were like, oh no, they burn every year and it's probably fine. And so I said, call them, like, let's get a hold of them. And no one could get a hold of them. But no one like wanted to check on it. And I watched them like double as I was making dinner. Like, I had a perfect view of them. And I called the fire department, and the fire department checked on it. It ended up starting to rain anyway, so it was all good. They were completely out by morning because we got rain. But if we wouldn't have got that rain, they were looking like they were getting out of control, and it was super windy. And once again, I just think it's taking a huge risk. Like, I totally get burning the fields, but I really think it needs to be done when we seem to be in a pattern of mellow wind. So I did feel like kind of guilty for calling the fire department, just because it's so not customary here. But like I said, we were in kind of an odd situation. We don't normally have fires like that. And like I said, I mean, really what usually burns throughout the whole state for the whole year happened in like 5 days. So we're at over 15,000 acres burned so far. So when you have situations like that, I think that it's not bad to kind of err on the side of caution and make sure that those huge plumes of smoke that you see across the way from your house are okay. And otherwise, if it wasn't windy, I really wouldn't care, because they do it all here all the time, and I'm not worried about it, So that is my message, is that we really do need to pay attention to what's going on with the weather. And so if we have something that's just extremely out of season and particularly strong, then I think we need to behave differently than we normally do. But I do love how casual it is here. Like you can just burn stuff here. For those of you that love burning stuff, which I am one of them, like come to Missouri, come join the party. We burn stuff. Sometimes we get out of hand. Sometimes like we get really out of hand. We kind of burn down a lot of stuff, but it's actually, it's like part of the culture. So, don't come here with too much fear, but I think there could be a little bit more caution. And that's where actually some of the behaviors that we've adopted by living in California, where we have such crazy wildfires, we've adopted some things that maybe would be helpful here, which is in any kind of red flag wind advisory, like we would only burn early in the morning if there was no wind, and then you literally water it down. You're super aware of using like anything that can spark. So like all your tools, right? Especially like if you're cutting with chainsaws or anything like that, you do it super duper early in the morning if there's no wind. If the wind is already picked up super early, which is unusual, then you definitely don't do that. And then you're very cautious of dragging a chain. I mean, how many fires have I seen but from someone just dragging a chain? It's like kind of crazy. So yeah, just kind of have to have an awareness that a lot of people don't have around here, because so many of the months are just saturated, right? We just have this one window, right? Sometimes it's only 1 month, but like really a couple months where we are dry as a bone and everything is just ready to burn. And so that is the time of year that we need to be super careful. And now we have left that time of year, and now we are entering tornadoes and flooding. So, choose your poison. There's going to be, these issues kind of wherever you go. One thing I have noticed though is I feel like we're going to have more tornadoes this year than we've experienced. So we've already had, the state has had, I'm going to guess like 25 or 30 tornadoes already. Like actual individual tornadoes. Because usually they all come at one time and there's multiple outbreaks of tornadoes. And remember, just like a week ago, I guess it was, we had 19 tornadoes in one day across the state. So yeah, I think it's going to be an active tornado year. Once again, as all these things happen, we are so happy that we are in the exact spot that we are. And we do notice that when a lot of, hard things happen, whether it's even the fires to a certain degree, but especially the flooding and the tornadoes, we just notice that we are particularly safe. Like we don't deal with the brunt of any of that. Knock on wood, anything can happen anywhere, for sure. Okay, you guys, thank you for joining me. And remember, no matter where you are in this great country, please be careful burning, whether it's a barrel of trash or 100 acres of field. If you are burning in the wind, that is a no-no, no matter where you are in the country. We should all take more precaution in the high winds. All right, you guys, thank you for joining me again. As always, my information is in the description. If you want to give me a call, send me an email, text, or set up a Zoom, everything will be there, and I will be here waiting to answer your questions about potentially the next move of your life to the great state of Missouri, but particularly the best place in Missouri, which is South Central, the Ozarks. All right, you guys, until next time, bye.